Well, hello, this is Peter Combs from Bidamount.com and P.O. Combs Asian Art in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And today is Friday, November 6, 2020, and this is our weekly video. A lot of you come each week and watch. It's where we take a look and see what was going on over at different auction scenes around the world, what's been happening on eBay, what's been happening at Catawiki, what's been happening on our own global member auction pages over the last week. It's been pretty busy everywhere. There was the sales in London. Christie's, Sotheby's, and Bonhams had some good auctions, and a whole bunch of auction houses have closed lots this week, and some more came on that are now on the global pages. And we're going to go through it all and sort of sort the thing out, all right, and see how things were. Let's see here. This is this week's newsletter actually on the global member pages. There have been some good additions put onto it this week. If you buy Chinese paintings, you want to check it out. There's some good Qing Dynasty watercolors and paintings on here, like this one. This is on the we have this feature box of a few things that we came across just to share with everyone, but I wanted to get into the pages themselves. This is the Live Auctioneers page, and the amount of stuff on here now is quite extensive. It's been loaded up heavily this week. A lot of sales are closing sometime between the next couple of days to 2 or 3 weeks. And as you can see, there's a lot of content. And this is just Live Auctioneers alone. It goes on and on and on and on. All right. And these are some of the things that are coming up I wanted to point out. One of them is this. It's a set of 18 early 19th century occupational watercolors, Chinese, of course. And these are really nice. These are heavily collected, and each watercolor has a scene of some sort of a different occupational pursuit in China. Here's the shoemaker, the shoe seller, the fish seller. Here's a person selling scholars objects and lacquer, porcelain. You see some nice little bits of porcelain here. He's got it all laid out on a rug and so forth. And then we're going to slide over to here. He's selling spices and meats and so forth. Here's a vegetable, a produce peddler plying his wares. Here's a pottery seller out sharing what he's made to try to make himself a living. And fan makers and hat makers. These are those wonderful hats you see with the famous finials that sit on top, and they have red silk tassels on them. Some of them are very finely made, and often you just see the finials being sold today. Often they were made of glass. And here you have what is this? Is this a fortune teller? And so forth. Here's another fellow decorating porcelain and so forth. At any rate, it's a very nice, interesting lot. And what's interesting really about it is that the estimate is very reasonable, 700 to 1,500 euros. And these are framed and ready to go. They measure a little over a foot in diameter in their frames, which is about right because the paintings themselves are leaf size. And these are being sold by Druitt's Donington Priory over in Berkshire in the UK. They're coming up in just a few days, 4.5 days from now. So if you're a Chinese watercolor buyer and you like to buy authentic early 19th century Chinese export watercolors, you want to check this out because you don't see a set of 8 come around very often anymore. Most of these sets have been broken up and they get passed down through families and they're dissipated. Here's the whole set of 8. They'd make a wonderful wall in a living room or something like that if you collect. And even if they go for 3 times the estimate, they're still a pretty good buy, I think. And the top estimate is £1,500. All right, now over this is another piece that's in the same sale, is this very nice, highly desirable pattern China Trade Hunt Bowl. A good example. This is not a great big punch bowl. This is about an 8 or so inch bowl, but nicely decorated and appears to be in good shape with a reasonable estimate. As you know, these punch bowls can bring $20,000, $30,000 anyways and up. And this bowl is estimated at 1,500 to 2,000 pounds, and it's worth chasing if you haven't got one of these in your collection. That's also at Druitt's. And then the Chinese export. I may have mentioned this last week. I forget. If I did, sorry. I love this. I like Peking enamel work particularly. I find the decoration, the ability of the artist to do some very, very fine work really interesting. They have this listed as a 19th century one. I think it might be a little older than that, but it doesn't matter. It's beautiful Chinese export work. Lovely, lovely roux heads going around the outside with gilding in them and so forth. Just a nice example of a mother with her child outside on a sunny day and another woman bringing tea. And I just like this. And the estimate estimate seems awfully reasonable on this. 100 to 200 pounds. All right, you can't go wrong with that. That's a great little teapot. Take a shot at it. All right, and then also over here, the Bonhams had a bunch of things sell this week. They had this, I mentioned earlier. We're going to be doing a video on it. But if you want to get a jump and a preview, go over to the Bonhams page on the Global Members section, and you can scroll down through it and get a good look at the items. And you can click; it'll take you over to Bonhams and show you what the stuff brought. Some really interesting items and some big surprises. All right, so check that out. Scroll around on their site. And now for invaluable, what's been going on over here? Let me see here. I think I've got more of it lined up on this side. We already did invaluable. Just if you have an account on the, check out the invaluable pages. No, we did live auction news. This is invaluable. Sorry. Nice Famille Rose pieces on here. Thomaston Place in Maine has a sale coming up shortly with some very nice China trade items in it. And also the things like this Kangshi teaware, this armorial pot, a very nice framed lacquered frame fan with Famille Rose decorated figures on it. Some good items, all right? And so does Eldred's down on Cape Cod. And then there's more of the bottom sale on there. We put them on both pages so they're easier to find. All right. The other thing I wanted to mention was an interesting thing popped up at Sotheby's this week. We found a way to search around and find all of the Chinese stuff that's in the non-Chinese auctions, specialty auctions, because as a lot of you know, Christie's, Sotheby's, and Bonhams, when they do their regular sales, household content sales, furniture collections, or single owner sales, they often have very good Chinese things in them. And we did some poking around this week, and we were able to build a list that we can put on the site of those items in those assorted, sort of scattered around sales. And the reason I pointed out is that sometimes you can find yourself getting a pretty good deal. Because a lot of the Chinese specialists don't always look at these auctions. And one of the things I wanted to mention was these little blue banners you're going to see. No reserve, no reserve, no reserve. All right, so in this case, you have this very nice, we'll open this one up. Kangshi Dish, there it is. All right, a very nice Kangshi period dish, $1,500 to $2,500 estimate, which sounds about right. Opening bid of $300 with no reserve. All right. So again, these are the kinds of things you want to take a shot at if you have the chance, especially if you live anywhere near New York and you're going to be around there. And this is a big plate, 15 inches. Okay. This is a big dish. It's a charger. And the estimate certainly seems reasonable, and an opening bid of $300 seems really inviting. So you want to check that out. The other thing I wanted to mention, and you can go through the Sotheby's, if you're a global page member, you can go through it. If you're not a global member page, usually you might want to sign up for it. It will save you a lot of time each week, because we sort of do the looking for you and put together the things that we like, and it'll get you where you want to be probably a lot quicker. All right, and it's not expensive. It's very reasonable, I think, anyway. It's as inexpensively as we could possibly do it. And then on to this, the yellow Femi Juneware Famille Rose relief decorated vases. These vases turn up fairly often. I think it was a little bit overlit in the photographs. I think that's the problem, because typically they're not quite so bright, but it looks like I'm seeing in the reflection here a whole bunch of lights, and I think they just overlit these a bit. But beautifully decorated with nice relief work on them. These are nice, desirable vases. These types of vases with this relief work was first done during the Kangxi period, came back in the late Qing dynasty quite popularly, and especially on turquoise ground pots and yellow ground pots. But I really like these, and these are good size. They were 17 inches tall, 17 and a half inches tall, $3,000 to $4,000 estimate with a $1,500 opening bid. They start in 2 weeks, and this is, you'll find it on the global pages. Very attractive. And also this, a nice looking pair. These are things that are not going to break the bank. A nice looking pair of, they have them listed as 19th century. They look 18th century to me, judging by the foot rims and the quality of the cobalt. These don't read to me like 19th century pots at all, the way this is shaded and colored in. They may just be conservative. They could be early 19th century, but they're old. Nice looking pair. $500 opening bid, $1,000 to $2,000 estimate. I think the estimate is a little bit heavy, but if you can pick them up for, under $1,000, you got a nice pair of vases on your hand. They look great on a mantle. They have later, conforming wooden lids. These lids are not original. They make these all day long in China. But they look fine. They look fine on there, and you can certainly use them until you can find a nice pair of carved ones to put on there, which do turn up from time to time. All right, and the other thing I wanted to mention was I've been suggesting this to people for a while, that if you want to know what something is or learn more about it, if you don't use the forum on Bidamount, you're sort of missing out, because it's sort of an interesting place. There's some interesting conversations that takes place there. It's very leisurely. You can upload images. You can ask questions. The people that use the forum all the time are all really nice people. We've had this forum now for several years, and there never has been any sort of rancor between anybody. And there's 83, what's the total right now? 932 topics and 8,315 different posts are on here. There's thousands of posts on here, and covers all, help identify things, favorite things, market items, your own, Asian items currently on eBay. People sometimes put in there things that they've got on eBay if they want the forum members to take a look at it. And you can learn a lot over here. They're very friendly, and everybody seems to share information quite well. And the moderator Mark does a really good job with it. All right, now let's take a look at eBay. Here we go. This was on eBay last week. A really handsome pair of a cup and saucer Kangshi period, but beautifully decorated. Very, very nice quality. They made lots of cup and saucer sets, but this was a particularly fine one, I think, in very nice condition. And if you look at the decorations on here, the way the vines are done, they're very serpentine, very neatly outlined all the way around, and then gently washed in with good colors. This is what you want to see. And the rims are delicately shaped all the way around, and the saucer goes with it. And here's a shot of the inside. Just a nice set, a clean, nice set, and very reasonable. $460. I think that was a perfectly good buy. This was Ancient Legends had this. He's a seller over in the Netherlands who gets things all the time. And they put, as you know, the Netherlands is just loaded with Kangshi blue and white pieces. It's Mecca. And this is a nice example. He also had this very nice Kangshi period underglaze blue and enamel dish. And I love the soft enamels on this, especially the soft iron reds. And what's interesting about these dishes, how great the visual effect is that they were able to achieve with a minimal color palette. There's not a big color palette here. What do you really have? You have a little bit of gilding, you have iron red, you have this soft tan color and cobalt, and that's about it. That's it. Gilding is like 4 colors on here, but it seems much more colorful visually, and that's a tribute to the painter, how good they were at shading things. And I love the honeycomb pattern going around the outside. Very nice example. And this ended up doing pretty well. It sold for $630, which is not unreasonable for that. That's a nice Kangshi example with a nice color palette and a very good scene drawn into it, and a good example. And it looked to be in quite nice condition, which is, of course, very, very important with early porcelains. The condition. And then over here to this. This is a nice, this lister in this case took the time to find out who the artist was and so forth. I saw this last week. I thought, boy, that's a nice pen and ink watercolor of a couple of mockingbirds, one on the ground, obviously, and one cackling up, the descending bird. There's some script on here. It's a leaf painting that's been framed and so forth. I'm not crazy about the frame. I'm not crazy about the sort of very, I'd maybe get a little better frame for it over time. You don't have to. You can put it up just as is. It'll look fine. I'd get a different frame on it, though. Anyway, it sold for just $203. It's circa 1870, according to the inscription. The painting, does look to be a period painting. And I think that was a great buy. That was a nice Chinese taste watercolor with birds. Very, very pretty. Framed and ready to hang for under $205. The shipping on it from Oklahoma to the Boston area, because pictures are a little expensive to ship, was $50, which I don't think is bad at all. I don't think that's bad at all. All right, nice looking item. Nice look. And I don't know the seller. Quick 2 is the name of the seller. They've got a few feedbacks, but I don't think they generally handle Chinese things, but at least they did their due diligence and found out who the painter was. All right, and then over here to this very nice little late Qing Dynasty lacquer box, lobed-shaped box with inset with blue and white underglazed blue panels or tablets in it, nicely framed. This is just a great little domestic box. There's nothing fancy or really, really rare about it, except it's the real deal. It was made in the culture. You see see it's got a little break out of it, which happens when these lids are taken off and put back and taken off and put back. And these boxes tend to shrink, especially with houses with central heating. And so you're prone to get little cracks and breaks in the inner lip. You won't see that when the cover's on. It'll look just like this. But nice, authentic antique, all right? And somebody managed to get this for a great price, $56 and $11 shipping from, like, this was being sold in Connecticut, so to here, it's $11 to ship it. That's a nifty item, and it was 3 or 4 inches, a small, nice little interesting table box, something you could pick up and look at and have and enjoy, and it's an interesting mix of components. All right, and then over here to this, one of these bunkrong bowls. I put this up because I wanted to mention that Rob Michaels had a virtually identical bowl in his sale this week, but it was in a little better condition, and it sold for just a little under or around $900 US. You can see it in the video, and you'll see that this one is virtually identical, including the interior of it, okay? Here's the interior of it. The difference being is that Rob's was in a bit better condition as far as where the enamels go. The wear doesn't bother me as long as you don't pay more than you should for it, because it just shows that it was used often in the culture, and this bowl was obviously used. And up here you see a few little nicks and dings and whatnot, and the foot, I believe, had a small nip out of it. Yeah, right there, some cracks in the foot and a little ding over here. Nothing too terrible, nothing that bothers me too much. Went for $280. So here's a range of wares that that's okay. So your price range, 200, 250, 280 for one that's got a little bit of wear to it, and then up to 900 for one that has no wear. If you take time to look at the one in Rob's sale, you'll see the difference. You'll see that the other, it was in a little better condition, but both of them are worthy, and they're both nice pieces of porcelain. And then over here to this very nice Kangshi period floral landscape bowl with rocks. I like these. I love it when they did these radiating panels and alternating with butterflies and flowers and birds and all this different stuff running around the outside, and then this nicely developed interior panel, sort of a close up into a flowering garden with these rocks at the bottom. It's obviously a directional plate. You have to display it this way or it won't make any sense. It'll look like these are hanging, like the rocks are stalactites, but nice looking thing. Good cobalt with this descending butterfly coming down into it, and all that. Very attractive, and sold for $306. It had a little hairline in it, but that was about it. And a nice example all the way around. Nice little example. And then on to this, the Cantonese ivory fan. This was a nice fan. It was in overall in very, very good condition, with the exception of a little tiny break right up here at the top. The seller did show it. They made sure that people were aware of it. But these first half of the 19th century Cantonese fans were always beautifully done. And this one was given the little panels, to put a monogram in. What would it look like with it closed up? Hold on. There it is. That's what it would look like. And you'd put your monogram in here. And this one was never monogrammed. That monogram, the tablet, looks like it's mother of pearl. And this would be a great thing. Get it and put your own monogram in it. Take it to an engraver and have them cut your name into it. But beautifully done, top quality Cantonese carving. And somebody paid a fair price for it, $616. Had it not had the little break at the top, it probably would have brought another $300, I suspect. But a nice example. And sometimes you can still find these with their original boxes, the silk liners and everything. But this was a nice fan, very good quality. And it is elephant ivory, of course, so if you try to buy them in another country and get them shipped to you, this was being sold in Austria, where they don't, things like that are pretty much allowed. You want to check it out, okay, before you try to ship them, because there are laws. All right, now on to this, the Yongchen period Famille Rose dish. Nice looking dish, about 7 or 8 inches in diameter. Good clear yellows, nicely decorated all the way around. And I like the fact that they did a pink panel on the border with this diaper pattern, then green, then pink, then green, alternating, soft colors. Here's a picture of the back of it, very typical of Yongchen dishes. Yongchen backs of export plates can often look like Kangshi dishes, except they're Famille Rose, okay? And not much porcelain in general in Famille Rose was done in the Kangshi period. They did a little bit of it at the very end of the era after 1717 when they figured out how to do it, but not typically on export pieces. It was typically always in the Yongchen that first was used. But they held over a lot of elements from the Kangshi period, like the use of this iron red on the back, which is typical of Kangshi pieces too. And at any rate, it brought $683. Is a good early Famille Rose example. All right, that does add some weight to the value. The Chin-Lung examples were more common, obviously, and it was later, so the earlier the better. All right, and then on to this, the Kangshi bowl. This was a nice one. It had sort of an oddball mark on the bottom, and it wasn't perfect. It had a nick out of the foot. It had some nibbles along the rim, a little hairline. Had some little issues here, crackle glaze, which I liked, and but it's early Kangshi. All right, and it ended up selling for $472, which is not bad for that. If you like sort of rusticated blue and white wares, with still feeling some of the late Ming influences on it. This was a nice looking bowl, good looking bowl, not bad at all. And then on to this. I hope some of you looked at this. These plates were highly unusual, and they ended up doing pretty well, but I don't think they brought the world. I think whoever bought them made an astute buy. And the reason is these are acrobat plates. And acrobat plates are quite rare. They do not turn up often. And when you see Chinese export plates turn up on auctions with the sort of standard, 1770s border decoration, much of it looks very standard, pay attention to the decoration that was added to the field. Often it's just a regular, very beautifully done, terraced landscape or balustrade scene or something like that. But every once in a while you come across this. And this is an interesting set of paintings. And what you have here is you have a group of dignitaries and so forth standing out on a wealthy family, possibly implying a part of the royal family or a governor or something out on a terrace. And here are some onlookers in the garden. And then they have this lovely little Chinese bridge going over the pond or the stream in their yard. And over on the other side are maidens playing different instruments. And here you have a juggler holding the acrobat on the end of his arm up in the air. Very classic Chinese scene. Very, very interesting. And this is not a big plate. I think this plate is around 9 inches long. But the scene is very, very rare. And there was a second plate with it, this one. It was not in nearly as good a shape. There was a lot of wear. This plate has been used a lot during its life. It has been used to pieces. I don't care about that. The one that there. This one, I don't know why their pictures are all sideways. That's the way they put them up, I guess. Yeah, here they are, a bunch of maidens and a gentleman. Anyway, very rare pattern. So always check to see what the scene is and then think to yourself, is that an unusual scene? This is an unusual scene. And somebody bought both plates for $1,025, which I think was a pretty good buy. If you're a dealer and you have a collector who buys rare patterns, this is a pretty good thing to buy. Nice looking thing. I'm not saying they've never turned up before. They have, but it's definitely in the small percentage range of plates that were ever done in China. And then on to this. Digger Studio had this up. He's a fellow here in Drake, Massachusetts, who deals mostly in pottery, sometimes bronzes. He's very eclectic, but he has a good eye. I don't know the guy. I see his stuff all the time. He lives about an hour or so, hour and a half from here. At any rate, he had this nice rank badge up. What I liked about this, I like rank badges that are nice and clean. Good colors. They've been stored away from bright sunlight. You notice that the legs of the bird is still that nice soft pink tone, skin color. Often that color fades to almost, you can't see it, it almost looks white. But the colors on this still look very, very nice, very crisp, very crisply, and very nicely woven. And somebody bought this for $720, which I don't think is a difficult price at all for this to reach. It was a nice example. It deserved it. Good, clean example. And $720. Sometimes they bring more, but $720 look perfectly fine to me. And then over here to this nice Kangshi decorated Kangshi period in mint condition bowl. It's about 8 inches in diameter or so, with these iron red flowers all over it and green enamel, sort of a wukai decoration, but mostly iron red and a little bit of yellow and a little bit of green. Somebody picked this up for 134 euros on Catawiki. That was a good buy. All right, that was a lovely buy, and it's supposed to be in absolutely perfect condition. All right, that was a nifty buy, and there you have this roundel with rooftops and trees in the background, flower baskets and so forth. The interior has the classic flower basket scene with insects going around it, with just single floral sprigs running around the rim. Very, very nice. Here's a picture of the foot rim, very typical Kangshi foot, sort of an ivory off-white color. Nicely done, smooth. $134, all right? And if you saw it and you thought, gee, that's going to go for a lot, well, the estimate was reasonable, 150 to 200 euros, which I thought was extremely reasonable, and it actually went under the low estimate. So, boy, somebody got a good buy there. And then over to this, the seto period. This is a seto pottery, rather, bowl, probably Edo period, circa 1800, 1820 is a guess. But I really like this. I had it featured in the newsletter 2 weeks ago when it first came up because I just love these earthy, really used in the culture objects. This was they call these oil trays sometimes. And as I mentioned a couple of other times, this is like Brian Page, the late dealer over in the UK, collected these. He had a lot of them. And this is another example, a very nice example. And I like the sort of some of the staining and whatnot that happened to it in the glaze. It just shows that it's been used, it's been enjoyed in Japan, and just a nice object. And somebody picked it up for 260 euros, which I think is perfectly reasonable. The prices for these varies depending whether it's a seto example or an Arita example. They were made in a variety of places. Oribe, there are Oribe examples of these. This was a nice one though, and they sell typically in the $200 to $500, $600 range. A superb one can bring into the thousands, but this is just a great folky piece. Very, very folky the way it's painted. This is what the back of one of these looks like. You want to get to know them if you like them. That's what the bottom should look like. Sometimes this base is not glazed, sometimes it is, but the outer area often is not glazed, but then just done on the wheel quickly with a brush, doing a couple of rings around it. And 260 euros. How can you beat that? That was a nice buy. And then on to this. This is an interesting thing because Rob Michaels had a plate virtually identical to this. It's a well-known pattern type of Ming export ware that was sent to Japan in the late Ming dynasty. And here it is, this very famous scene with the banner and the palace and the people arriving, and the underglaze red and underglaze blue with this dental molded rim. All right, this one was not perfect. It had a couple of hairlines and nicks and so forth to the rim. Sold for $351, which is fine. That's a good price for this because it's a highly recognized pattern. All right, and then Rob Michaels had one earlier this week that appeared to be pretty much perfect. Identical pattern, more brightly lit than the other one. The photography on one was a little bit dark, and the photograph here is a little bright. But it's a good. This is a good photograph that really shows the details. And this was a nice one, and as I said, it didn't have any chips or nicks out of it. And the base, the foot rim was a little bit better, a little more tidily cleaned up than the other. The other one was a little crude. But regardless, this one brought 1,600 euros plus the buyer's premium. So it ended up selling for about $2,400 or $500. But it just goes to show that if you can't afford the perfect, the perfect example, because it sells for several $1,000s, if you look around and you're a little bit careful, you can pick up one that's the same class, same type, and in general, it is the same plate, same period for 80% less, 90% less, if you can live with a couple of hairlines and cracks. And some people don't care about hairlines and cracks the way some other people do. It's a personal choice thing. All right, now over to what's coming up. Over the weekend on the newsletter page. The page, as you know, has been, we've updated the way we do the weekly newsletter page and sort of expanded the Catawiki section down and added its own section for Japanese works of art. This is the newsletter page. If you're not a subscriber, you want to sign up for it. You'll get notified when we update it on Fridays, and there's a lot of content on here, and this is free. The weekly newsletter. There's some good Japanese things on there. There's some good Netsky. There's some very nice lacquer. And they always have interesting subas. So if you're a suba buyer, you want to check it out. These are some of the things that are coming up that will be in this week's newsletter. One of them is this very nice watercolor of the herons. It closes on Monday. It's up to $21. It's a 19th century example, Qing Dynasty. There are two of them from this seller. We'll have them both in the newsletter page. If you can pick the pair up if you can pick up one of them for under about $300, $350, you got a heck of a good buy. Those are nice watercolors. Also, the Nonya Straits a bowl, shaped rim bowl with beautifully bright flowers on it. This is will be on the Catawiki section. It's up to $60. It closes on Sunday. Should bring $600 to $800, I suspect. But a nice example, late Qing Dynasty. All right, and then on to this. This is a nice thing, and a couple of people have asked me about it. And they thought it was Kangshi. It is not a Kangshi example. It's a 19th century example of a Kangshi type. And there's a few things that give it away, and I wanted to share it with everybody. One of the things is the way the piece is shaped. If you look at the body here, this upper section of the second gourd, they call these double gourds, is not as well rounded and defined as it should be, because what's on top of it is this sort of up-down cup-like device. All right, like this. Typically, they're not done this way, and so the bowl, this midsection is much more round, and then it goes up to a fairly straight neck going up the body. This is a later a method of doing them. I've only seen them on later ones. Maybe somebody else hasn't, but I've only seen them on later ones. And the foot rim on this is clearly a 19th century foot rim, judging by its shape and texture and so forth. But a very nice vase nonetheless. Overglaze blue enamels. You can see some of the enameling is chipped off. That was one of the problems with overglaze blue, especially in the 19th century. It didn't adhere well, and it was quite prone to chipping. But it also has this nice aubergine that you did see on Kangshi pieces, and it's very translucent, and that's often confuses people. They see translucent aubergine and think, oh, it's got to be Kangshi. No, here's a 19th century one with a perfectly translucent aubergine and a very nice translucent yellow. But it is not Kangshi, it is 19th century. All right, but it's still a $300-400 vase, and it closes in 4 days on Tuesday, and it's only up to about $76. All right, now over here to this. This is a Japanesemari dish done during the later 18th century, probably early 19th, somewhere in there. Nice example. A lot of people think these are Chinese, and as a matter of fact, this seller has it listed as Chinese. All right, it's estates and consignments out in California. We don't often feature their stuff because they sometimes don't seem to really know what they're doing. This is not a Chinese plate; it's a Japanese plate, and that was my point. But if you're a Japanese porcelain collector, you might pick this up for nothing because they're trying to sell it as Chinese. And one of the quickest way to tell on these Amari examples is that generally speaking, when you flip them over, there is a blue ring running around it. But when you see it as a single blue ring, first thing you should think is Japan. And when you see it as a single blue ring this close to the foot rim, think Japan, okay? The Chinese always did, virtually always did. There aren't many things you can say always do, but that's one of the things you can say always do. Always did a double blue circle closer into the rain marks, and the Japanese just copied rain marks. When they made copies of Chinese porcelain, they copied everything right down to the rain marks. It became sort of a tradition, and they particularly copied chunhua marks. All right, but when you see the underglaze blue, this circle this close to the foot, in just one, it's just Japanese, and don't pay any attention to what the seller says. At any rate, this closes in 6 hours. It'll be on the newsletter page if you catch it in time. It's up to $11. It might go to $30 or $40, but it's a perfectly good example. All right, now on to this. Is this very nice, this is Super Shrink has this up, this very nice dedication sterling silver tea kettle on stand. Beautiful example. It's dated around 1890, excuse me. And it's signed on the base with dragons, and it was a gift to a gentleman who was leaving. It was a parting gift from Hong Kong. They gave out nice parting gifts back then. Hold on, where's the inscription? I want to try to find that. There it is, and it says, presented to W.C. Rodney Esquire by members of the D.R.C. Hong Kong on his departure from the colony, November 1919. The piece was made earlier, and then it was later inscribed. That's why I thought it was 20th century. But at any rate, beautiful piece of silver. It's up to $1,000, closes on Saturday, and ought to bring $1,800 to $2,500 anyway. Nice looking pot, nice looking piece of silver. Chinese silver, the more I see of it, the more I appreciate it. It's one of those things because there were so many good silversmiths in China. It was amazing. All right, now over to this nice big, probably Kangshi period. It's clearly 18th century pot. Nice looking bottom on there, good looking foot rim all the way around. Beautifully done. This type of pot was also done later, but this decoration very much makes me think it's Kangshi. It's sort of a production wear piece. They did chargers with the same pattern on it fairly often, but a nice big pot all the way around. I like the phoenix on it, and it is up to $705, and it closes on Sunday, and this is a pretty good sized jar. It is 13 inches tall. Nice size. Nice example right there. And then over here to this, I mentioned these. I always mention these when these come up for sale. These Famille Rose late 19th, early 20th century lanterns. These are early 20th century ones, probably Republic period around the 20s. They made lots of them for export. They used to call them what were they called? Concubine lamps. They used to call them. Sometimes they call them wedding lamps. And they were made for export predominantly. They made them earlier, but the ones that were made after the 1890s were all made pretty much to be exported. They're beautifully done, beautifully made, and they look great lit up. If you don't own a pair of these, they typically run in the 12 to 15 inch range. The shapes are all very, very similar, and they're easily electrifiable. Okay, so you get yourself a pair of these and put a light in them. We have one of these. I think I mentioned it before on our deck. It has a roof over it, so it's not in the weather. But we use it as a night light if we're eating outside. They're very charming. And this pair will probably close in the $600 to $900 range by the time it's done. It closes on Sunday. But if you like these and you want to own them, this is a nice looking pair. All right, just tell that whoever, if you buy them, make sure the guy ships them really carefully, because these pieces are unbelievably prone to breaking because of the inherent weakness of the bodies because of all the reticulation. All right, and then on to this. If you buy scholars objects or table objects, and you can't afford the Ming ones, and you can't afford the really, really expensive table objects for the scholars table, this is a very nifty little brush washer. That's all I can say. It's just wonderfully done. It's a late 19th century piece. Here's a picture of the bottom of it. You can see some ink on here where it evidently spilled at some point and soaked into the paste. But this is that class of porcelain that they did in the late 19th century, crackleware bodies, and they added that dry pigment around here that sort of simulates bronze on the tops. You see them on the bottoms of vases, this cafe ground, and it is Famille Rose decorated, and this is a rare form. Okay, this is not a form you're going to see often at all. And if you buy collector's objects and table objects, you want to buy it because you notice what's in it: scholars books, jars, canisters, scrolls, all kinds of little scholarly objects are on it, bronzes and so forth. Really nifty item. This is like one of those real things that was made in China. I like it a lot. And it's not an expensive scholars object. It'll probably do pretty well, but it closes on Monday. It's up to $24. And if you could pick this up for under $300, you got a nifty item on your hands. Really like that. I like that kind of thing a lot. All right. And that's about it for the week. If you haven't subscribed yet to us here on YouTube, please do. If you haven't joined us over on Bidamount.com, you haven't used the reference section or joined the forum, please come over and do it. It's free. We don't charge for it. The only thing we charge anything for are the little paid inquiries we take care of for folks who use the site, and the global member pages, which is, as I said, is $4 a month, so that's fine. And leave us a comment, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to us here on YouTube, and have a wonderful weekend. It's 68, 70 degrees here. I'm going to bug out as soon as I can. Go spend some time on the deck looking at the ocean. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. And we'll be getting a couple of videos out next week, at least on the bottoms and the Christie's and Sotheby's sales from London, how they did. Interesting series of sales. Okay. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.